December 16th, 1944. 5:40 a.m. Ardennes Forest, Belgium. Somewhere behind the American lines, there is enough food, fuel, and equipment to supply entire armies for months, stacked with a level of precision and abundance that feels almost unreal. A system so vast, it doesn't just support war, it overwhelms it. And at that exact moment, deep in the frozen darkness of the Ardennes, German soldiers are starving. The cold doesn't sting, it invades, creeping through worn uniforms and in a bone, draining strength with every step as Gefreiter Karl Weber pushes forward through the snow with the 26th Volksgrenadier Division, his breath visible, his hands numb, his stomach hollow in a way that no longer feels like hunger, but like something missing entirely, something that isn't coming back. Around him, men move in silence, their energy spent long before this offensive even began, driven forward not by confidence, not by belief, but by orders and instinct alone. Ahead, Lieutenant Franz Keller raises his hand, and the column freezes instantly, every man alert despite exhaustion. Because in this war, hesitation means death, and then they hear it, faint but unmistakable, the distant hum of engines cutting through the stillness. Weber tilts his head slightly, listening harder, trying to place it, American engines close, too close for comfort, and Keller knows it too, because this offensive depends on surprise, on speed, on hitting before the Allies can react. But something about this moment feels wrong, too quiet, too easy. He gives a quiet command, and they move again, slower now, more cautious, rifles ready, boots pressing into the snow as the forest begins to thin, and then suddenly it opens, and what they see doesn't look like a battlefield at all. It looks like order, rows of American trucks aligned with perfect spacing, storage buildings intact, fuel drums stacked with almost mathematical precision. No smoke, no signs of struggle, no bodies, just silence. Weber slows without realizing it, confusion replacing tension, because this doesn't match anything he knows about war. This looks untouched, preserved like something left behind on purpose, and Keller orders the area cleared, the men spreading out with weapons raised, expecting at any second for gunfire to erupt, for hidden defenders to reveal themselves. But nothing happens, no shots, no movement, just the echo of their own boots and the faint metallic smell of machinery. Weber approaches one of the buildings, hesitates for a fraction of a second, then pushes the door open, the sound loud in the stillness, and the moment it swings inward, everything changes. He stops completely, his mind struggling to process what's in front of him, crates stacked higher than a man, stretching deep into the building, perfectly organized, row after row after row, too many to count, too many to make sense of, and slowly, almost carefully, he steps inside, reaches down, and opens one. Food. Not scraps, not rations stretched thin but full, sealed cans, meat, chocolate, powdered milk, coffee, real coffee, and for a second he just stares at it, not moving, not speaking because it doesn't feel real. Behind him, more soldiers enter, their reactions immediate, confusion turning into disbelief as they open more crates. Each one the same, food, clothing, medical supplies, boots that have never been worn, uniforms that have never seen mud or blood. Everything new, everything abundant, everything wrong. You can almost feel the shift happening in that room. The moment where discipline begins to crack, where training gives way to something more human, more desperate, because this isn't just a discovery, it's a contradiction. Everything they've been living through suddenly standing in direct contrast to what is in front of them. Back home, food is rationed. At the front, it is scarce. Equipment is reused until it fails. Every resource stretched to its limit. And here there is no limit, no hesitation, just endless supply. Someone speaks quietly, asking if this is normal, if this is how the Americans fight their war, but no one answers because no one knows, and Weber finally reaches out, his hand shaking slightly as he picks up a can, reading what little he can understand before opening it, eating quickly, almost instinctively, while around him others do the same, tearing open crates, drinking cold coffee straight from tins, not celebrating, not even speaking much, just consuming in silence. Keller stands near the entrance, watching, but he isn't focused on the men or the food. He's looking at what it represents. Because this doesn't feel accidental, it doesn't feel like a mistake, it feels planned, structured, repeated, and that's when the thought begins to form, slow and unavoidable. What if this isn't just one depot? What if this is everywhere? What if this is the scale of what they are fighting against? Weber leans back slightly, his body finally registering warmth as the food settles. But instead of relief, something else begins to grow, something heavier, because if the enemy can afford to lose something like this, something this massive, this valuable, without even defending it, then what does that mean for everything else? What does that mean for the war itself? He looks at Keller, and Keller looks back, and nothing needs to be said because in that silent exchange, something shifts, something internal, something irreversible, because for the first time, this doesn't feel like a hard fight or a difficult campaign. It feels like something much larger, something they were never meant to fully see. And beyond the forest, beyond the snow, beyond this moment, the American war machine keeps moving, producing, supplying, expanding, untouched, unstoppable. And for the men standing inside that depot, surrounded by more than they have ever seen, a question begins to take shape, quiet but impossible to ignore. How do you win against something that never seems to run out? December 16th, 1944. 6:25 a.m. Ardennes Forest, Belgium. The sound comes first, low and distant, barely noticeable over the quiet chaos inside the depot. But it is there, growing, steady, mechanical, engines again, and this time there is no confusion about what it means. Weber hears it as he wipes his hands on his coat, his breathing heavier now, his body no longer running on emptiness, but something else, something unfamiliar in this war, a brief, dangerous sense of strength. Around him, the room has changed, the crates are torn open, metal lids scattered across the floor, men crouched or standing wherever they found space, eating quickly, almost silently, as if afraid it might be taken away, as if this moment is temporary, fragile. And it is. Keller steps forward abruptly, his voice cutting through the stillness, low but sharp, commanding attention without needing volume, telling them to stop, to move, to prepare, because whatever this place is not safe, not anymore. The engines are closer now. Weber turns toward the open doorway, the cold air rushing in again, bringing with it that same tension they had lost just minutes ago. And for a brief second, he hesitates, looking back at the crates, at the impossible abundance, as if trying to understand it one last time before reality returns. Outside, the forest no longer feels empty. There is movement somewhere beyond the trees, distant but coordinated, and Keller knows exactly what that means. The Americans are reorganizing, reacting, adjusting faster than they should be able to, faster than any army he has faced before. He signals the men out, reforming what little structure remains, but something has changed, something subtle but critical, because now every man has seen it, every man has felt it, and it cannot be unseen. Weber steps back into the snow, the cold hitting him again, but it feels different now, sharper somehow, more real, as if the brief warmth inside made everything else clearer instead of easier. He grips his rifle tighter, scanning the tree line, but his mind is not fully here anymore. Part of it is still inside that building, still staring at those crates, still trying to measure the scale of what he saw. Trucks begin to appear in the distance, silhouettes moving between the trees, not chaotic, not disorganized, but deliberate, controlled, part of something larger, that is already in motion. Keller watches them for a moment, calculating, adjusting, knowing that whatever advantage they had is slipping away faster than expected. This was supposed to be a breakthrough, a decisive strike that would split the Allied lines, disrupt their supply, force them into retreat. But now, standing here, looking at the sheer volume of what they can afford to lose, that idea feels thinner, weaker. Weber shifts his weight, his stomach no longer empty, but his thoughts heavier than before, because hunger was simple. Hunger made everything clear: survive, find food, keep moving. But this is something else, something harder to process, because it suggests a future, and that future doesn't look like victory. The engines grow louder, the outlines of American vehicles becoming clearer, armored silhouettes moving with confidence, not hesitation, not uncertainty. And that confidence spreads through the air like something tangible, something that contrasts sharply with the quiet doubt forming among the German ranks. Keller gives the order to move again, to reposition, to avoid direct contact, because this is no longer the fight they expected, and his voice remains steady, controlled, but inside, something is shifting as well. He has seen supply lines before, captured depots, disrupted logistics, but nothing like this, nothing on this scale, nothing that feels so replaceable. Weber takes one last glance over his shoulder as they move back into the forest, the depot partially hidden now by distance and trees, but still there, still untouched in so many ways, still representing something far larger than a single location. And as they retreat into the shadows, the realization begins to settle, slow but certain, because if this is what lies behind the American lines, if this is what supports their advance, then every step forward the Germans take is not breaking the enemy. It is barely scratching the surface. The forest closes around them again, the sounds of engines blending with the natural silence. But the feeling does not fade. It lingers, persistent, growing, because now they are not just fighting soldiers, they're fighting production, industry, a system that does not tire, does not starve, does not hesitate. And somewhere behind them, those trucks keep coming, filling the gaps, replacing what was lost as if nothing had happened at all. And that is the part that stays with Weber the most, not the food, not the warmth, but the realization that even after everything they just saw, the Americans are still advancing, still supplying, still overwhelming, as if the war itself is feeding them instead of draining them. And for the first time, the question is no longer how to win, but how long they can continue before the answer becomes impossible to ignore. December 16th, 1944, 9:10 a.m. Ardennes Forest, Belgium. The snow has stopped falling, but the silence is gone. Artillery rolls in the distance like a storm that never breaks, a constant reminder that whatever advantage the Germans hoped to seize this morning is already slipping through their fingers. Weber moves with the column through denser ground now, boots sinking deeper, breath heavier, the earlier warmth fading into something colder than before, not in his body, but in his thoughts. Hunger had been a problem he understood, something physical, something immediate, but what he saw inside that depot refuses to leave him, replaying again and again the endless rows, the untouched crates, the quiet certainty that none of it truly mattered to the enemy because there was always more coming. Around him, the men are quieter than before, not just from exhaustion, but from something unspoken, a shared awareness that has begun to settle over them like the snow itself, thin at first, now growing heavier with every step. No one talks about it, but it's there in the way they move, in the way they glance back more often than necessary, as if expecting to see those trucks again, those perfect lines of supply that seem to follow the Americans everywhere. Keller walks ahead, posture rigid, every movement controlled, but even he cannot ignore what they've encountered. He had studied logistics, understood supply chains, knew that wars are not won by bullets alone, but seeing it, standing inside it, changes something fundamental. It is no longer theory, no longer numbers or reports. It is scale, physical and undeniable, and scale like that does not break easily. The radio operator struggles to maintain a signal, static cutting through fragmented transmissions, reports coming in from other units, confusion, resistance, American forces regrouping faster than expected, counterattacks forming where there should have been gaps. Weber catches pieces of it, enough to understand the pattern, enough to feel the weight of it pressing down. This offensive was supposed to create chaos, to fracture the Allied response, but instead, the response is already forming, already stabilizing, as if the system behind it absorbs the shock and continues without hesitation. They reach a ridge overlooking a narrow road, and Keller signals another halt. From there, they can see movement below, American convoys advancing, not retreating, not disorganized, but steady, controlled, vehicles spaced evenly, protected, efficient. Weber watches them, trying to reconcile what he feels with what he sees, because this is not what victory looks like, not even the early stages of it. There is no collapse, no panic, no sign that the enemy is struggling to keep up. If anything, they look stronger, more prepared, as if every loss only triggers more reinforcement. One of the soldiers beside Weber mutters something under his breath, barely audible, questioning how much of this exists, how deep it goes, how far back it stretches. And for once, no one dismisses it. No one laughs it off, because they've all seen enough now to know that the answer is not small. Keller studies the road for a long moment before giving the order to avoid engagement. It is a calculated decision, tactical, necessary, but it carries something else beneath it, an acknowledgement that direct confrontation here would achieve nothing, that whatever they destroy would be replaced before it even mattered. Weber shifts his grip on his rifle again, but it feels different now, lighter in his hands, less decisive than it should be, because for the first time, the weapon in his grasp feels smaller than the system he is up against. They move again, deeper into the forest, but the environment has changed, not physically, but in perception, every sound sharper, every movement more significant, because now they understand that they are not moving through empty ground. They are moving along the edges of something vast, something constantly feeding the enemy's strength. The reports continue to filter through, other units encountering similar resistance, similar patterns, the same unexpected resilience, and slowly, piece by piece, a realization forms, not sudden, not dramatic, but steady and unavoidable. This offensive is not breaking the Allies. It is revealing them, revealing how much they can absorb, how quickly they can respond, how little a single loss means when the system behind it is this large. Weber feels it settle in his chest, heavier than hunger ever was, because hunger could be filled, but this is something else, something that cannot be fixed with a single moment, a single victory, or a single breakthrough. And as the forest closes around them once more, the distant sound of engines never truly fading, the truth becomes harder to ignore, because somewhere behind those lines, more depots wait, more trucks move, more supplies flow, and no matter how many are captured, no matter how many are destroyed, the machine continues, untouched at its core. And for the men walking through the snow, carrying what little they have left, the question is no longer whether they can push forward, but whether. Anything they do can truly slow something that was built to outlast them.